I'd like to welcome you back to our study in the book of Second Corinthians. Today we're going to pick up with Second Corinthians, the 7th chapter, verse number 7. The Apostle Paul is talking to the Corinthians. He's writing to the Corinthians, and the key word in these verses is the word comfort. The Greek word is parakaleo. It means to come alongside and be encouraged. How many of you realize that every one of us needs times of encouragement? And the Apostle Paul was one that needed encouragement, and he received it from his good friend and fellow minister by the name of Titus. Now, in verse number 7, it says this, and not only by his coming, the Apostle Paul was comforted when Titus got there. Titus came and he brought words of encouragement to the Apostle Paul. But then Paul writes on in verse number 7, but also by the comfort with which he was comforted in you. So what's Paul saying? He's saying Titus came and he brought me comfort. But Titus was comforted by you. Now, how was he comforted by the Corinthians? By the Corinthians coming back to faith. By the Corinthians being reconciled to God, by the Corinthians repenting, and the church is on its way to a wonderful, wonderful restoration. And you know what? Titus came to Paul and comforted him, but Titus was comforted himself when he saw what the church at Corinth was doing, and he saw the changes that were taking place in the church of Corinth. Now let's go on. And it says, as he reported to us your longing. Now we're going to see some things that happened in the church at Corinth. What did he report to the Apostle Paul? He reported their longing. He reported their longing, and it says that they reported to us your longing. And it means a great desire. Now, we can look at this in a couple different ways. We can look at it as being their longing for the Apostle Paul. How many of you know that when you desire somebody and you desire their ministry, you can classify it as a deep longing? And so all of a sudden, Paul is thinking, did they accept my message or did they not accept my message? And then Titus comes and says, Paul, they accepted it. Not only did they accept it, but they are longing for more. They are wanting more. They are hungry for more. And then he says, your mourning. And the word your mourning means the mourning of the Corinthians, and we're going to talk about that later, so we're going to just move right along here. And your zeal for me. Now notice that the Apostle Paul had created in the people a zeal. A zeal. The word zeal means a fervent desire. Actually, this Greek word can also be translated as a jealousy in a negative sense. But these people wanted what Paul had. Why did they want? Because the Apostle Paul wrote a very difficult letter, the letter of 1 Corinthians, to the people, and he did it because he loved them. Now, the Apostle Paul writes at the end of verse number 7, so that I rejoice even more. So that I rejoice even more. What's Paul saying? I'm hearing this. I'm receiving this. You're receiving me, and I'm receiving the message that you received me, and now I'm rejoicing because God is at work in you. Verse number 8. For though I caused you sorrow by my letter. What's Paul saying? He's saying, I wrote a letter to you that caused you to have sorrow. Let me just say this. We live in a society, in a day and an age, where sorrow is thought of as being something negative. And you know what? We need to turn our thinking around. Paul said, I wrote you a letter and it caused you sorrow. I caused you sorrow by my letter, and I don't regret it. I'm not taking it back. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I caused you to be sorry. Paul said, I caused you sorrow, and I don't regret causing you sorrow. I don't regret it at all. And then he goes on and he says, though I did regret it, in past tense, there was a time where Paul was probably thinking, why in the world did I write that letter? Why was I so hard? You know, I've been in ministry a long time, 57 years or something like that. And you know what? There's been times where the Lord has led me to bring a message, and afterwards I regretted it. So I can completely sympathize with what the Apostle Paul's going through. Paul said, you know what? I don't regret it now, but I did regret it at some point in the past. So he says, I don't regret it, though I did regret it, for I see that the letter caused you sorrow, though only for a while. Now notice the Apostle Paul says that letter caused sorrow, but it only caused sorrow for a while. We need to take a look at sorrow, and we're going to do that this week. But we need to understand that when you have to do something to discipline someone else, that you're going to cause sorrow in their lives. My children, I've got two great children, a son and a wonderful daughter. But you know what? There were times where I had to discipline them, and it caused sorrow in them. But you know what? That sorrow did not linger, because that sorrow brought them to a point of change. We need to understand that. Sometimes when God comes and he corrects us and he says, you know what, this area of your life needs to be corrected, we're going, oh, no. That's what our impulses are. But you know what? That sorrow, if we will listen to it, if we will listen to that correction that's coming, you know what's going to happen? We are going to become fruitful. We're going to learn this week that sorrow produces great things. So let me just say this to you. I want you just to stop a minute, because we're in such a society nowadays that everything needs to be joyful. I want you to stop just for a second, and I want you to think about sorrow, godly sorrow. Begin to meditate on it, because we're going to pick this up tomorrow, and we're going to continue to talk about mourning and sorrow and grief. When sorrow comes because of the discipline or the correction of God or another person in your life, take heed to it, because it's coming not to make you feel bad, it's coming to make you better. So thank you for watching this podcast today. Join us again tomorrow as we continue this study in the book of 2 Corinthians.